Welcome to the cricket catch-up from Guernsey Press Sport. It's not just been the World Test Championship final affected by rain. We've had a few interruptions here in Guernsey over the last week, but things really are taking shape now at the top end of local cricket. We've got a two-horse race in Odey Wealth Evening League Division 1, and there are two teams in contention as well as we head into the final round of fixtures in the weekend championship. Griffins involved in both of those title charges. I'm pleased to say Mr. Griffins himself, Rob Thomson, is here with me today.
Thank you.
Rob, good to see you.
And you.
Let's start with that weekend stuff then, because it was somewhat of an unusual and extraordinary game on Saturday here against Cobo. It could have been done and dusted. Griffins first could have sealed the title, but in the end a spirited Cobo fight back landed it. But that only tells half the story.
Yeah, definitely. And certainly there's a lot of discussion on our side that we could have got the job done before this coming weekend, but it wasn't to be. And we had quite a lot of guys coming in and out of the day on Saturday, kept coming down, and one chap in particular who came and went within the space of an hour and couldn't believe what he was seeing almost.
Yeah, let's just talk through it briefly, because Cobo had started really well, reaching 98 with no loss. Jamie Nussbaumer and Zach Damrell going nicely here at the KG5. But then Griffins seized control pretty swiftly, a clutch of wickets falling in no time at all to leave Cobo reeling. They eventually limped to 134 for 8 from their 50 overs. It was quite a recovery in the end, and a very slow one, if you can call it a recovery. But it was a bowler's day for sure. Some extenuating circumstances, shall we say. Cobo's attack all getting in on the act to knock Griffins over for 110 in the 33rd over. So a first win of the season for the Seagulls and a first defeat for Griffins. Yeah, have you seen a game like that?
I haven't, no, not in terms of the number of twists and turns. And I think as well for us, on reflection, I was thinking this morning, it was actually the first game we've had where DLS has come into play. And I think with hindsight, we probably got that slightly wrong. It was the right decision at the toss to chase with that in mind, and we all saw the forecast and the radar and so on. I think we didn't quite know how to go about the chase, bearing in mind we knew that DLS would be a factor. Lost wickets and tried to catch up that DLS target, and in doing so lost more wickets and got ourselves into a position where we simply ran out of wickets. Well, so it was a learning curve for us in that respect, and I think next time if we've got another DLS affected game, we'd like to think we'll go about it a little bit differently.
Good experience, and I guess for the neutral it keeps things interesting going into that final weekend of the season. Griffins take on Wanderers Irregulars down here. A win, of course, would seal it. OEAs beat Wanderers Irregulars on the weekend. Matt Stokes leading them to another victory. So they are still in contention, albeit slightly behind the net run rate. Do you feel like Griffins go into the weekend, though, in the driving seat still?
I think marginally. We've obviously lost quite a lot of the momentum that we generated by winning the first 4. But it's certainly in our hands. We know, and we're the only side that know a win would be sufficient. OEs obviously need a bit more to go for them, but they're certainly not out of it, not by any means. And we've got to bounce back, so fingers crossed we do.
It should be exciting. Well, let's check in on the Evening League now. It's Griffins and Indies who share the lead at the halfway point in the season. Both unbeaten, in fact, after the first fixture between those sides was washed out. The big game of last week saw Indies, favourites in many people's eyes, putting that unbeaten record on the line against defending champions Cobo. And Indies made a bright start, batting first. The opening pair of Nathan Letitia and Zach Damrell settling into a century stand. Damrell hit 3 sixes alongside another from his skipper as they laid a platform at the KG5. But it wasn't always coming out the middle of the bat, which presented the Cobo fielders with a fair few chances, to say the least, before they were able to make the breakthrough. Tom Ozan finally holding on to one off the bowling of Dec Martel to get rid of Letitia for 36. Then young Charlie Birch, having dropped a more straightforward chance earlier, then took an acrobatic grab to dismiss Damrell for a brisk 69. That brought CJ Peatfield and Matt Stokes to the crease for a couple of quick cameos from them. Stokes, Guernsey Cricket's form man, heaving 2 balls over the ropes before being bowled, attempting a reverse. Peatfield finishing not out as Indies completed their innings just 3 down to set Cobo 169 to win. Chasing that was the Gulls' captain Josh Butler, who lit the prize wicket as he got his side off to a strong start, pulling both Will Peatfield and Kieran the Galley for 6. But Indies were much more clinical than their opponents in the field, dropping absolutely nothing. First, Jamie Nussbaumer fell, then Ollie Newey, before Ben Fairbrush was run out with some neat work from Damrell behind the stumps. And when Butler himself went shortly after, Morgan Clayton making no mistake at long off, Indies were well on top. Dec Martel did his best to keep Cobo in the game, showing his creativity to find the rope with some smart shot making, but the wickets kept coming, the defending champions finishing 8 down, but crucially 17 runs short. Indies extending their perfect record to set up a showdown then with Griffins next week. Rob, halfway through the campaign, then moving onto the grass for the final rounds of fixtures. What have you made of things so far?
It's been very, very tight. As you say, those you talk about 2 at the top, but I talk about 3. I think Cobo still certainly very much in it, can certainly have a big influence on what happens and how it ends up. They'll fancy beating both ourselves and Indies in the second round, and in theory, then that levels all of that up. So yeah, we're certainly looking forward to getting out on the grass. Our sort of aim for the first half of the campaign on the mat was to still be in it, still be challenging, still be involved, which we certainly are. So we're looking forward to seeing what we can do in the second round.
Yeah, you've got irregulars up next, but then that big game against Indies to come the week after. Have you already got one eye on that?
Yeah, I think it's hard not to as things stand at the moment, and obviously as well publicised. We're the top 2 with the 2 that are unbeaten. So as long as we get that game on, somebody won't be, you would think, after that game, and it'll really start to take shape. I think after that, we're just hoping to get them played. We had 2. Well, first of all, we got rained off last year, and the second game was a curtailed affair, which wasn't really a full game, and we missed them obviously a few weeks ago. So we're desperate to get stuck into them and give it a go and see if we can upset the odds. Well,
let's hope the sun comes back for that one, for sure. Yeah, you mentioned that unbeaten record. Obviously, it came to an end at the weekend, but before that, Griffins had been going really, really well. What do you put that form down to?
I mean, I think it's what we've been really, really grateful for this season has been our depth, and everyone's simply stood up and put performances in different weeks as well, different guys, and we've obviously had 2 or 3 in particular that have stood up more regularly, and obviously Luke's runs in particular in the earlier part of the season were so vital to us, but right down across the board, be it late runs, Adam Martel and Dane Mullen obviously getting us across the line in Wanderers in the Championship the other week, and about other guys coming down lower order hitting runs, and equally 5th, 6th choice bowlers taking wickets and bowling really good spells. So I think when I look across the board, look across the league, that's probably what's kept us in it so far. And TK's got so many options available to him, and it's really good for him to be able to mix things up and keep things fresh.
Yeah, and obviously you've enjoyed some success in recent years, but has it taken you by surprise that you're sort of so much in the mix this season?
This year, certainly. We've obviously missed Jason Martin for almost all of both of those campaigns for obvious reasons. We've got a few lads who are at uni that are still away because of restrictions, so we knew we were light on numbers, which we have been. Fortunately, everybody's of our core players have pretty much played every game, and that's been really, really important to us as well. But I think we've up to this point anyway, we've had slightly lower expectations, which it's been a few years now since we had a couple of really successful years, and takes a couple of years to lose that tag of reigning champions and favourites and so on, and we're probably a bit more comfortable now, slightly more under the radar, and that's been a good place for us to be coming into this season and just go about our business. We know we can beat anybody on our day, and so far so good.
Yeah, and how big an achievement would it be for Griffins to win one or both of the big titles on offer?
I think it'd be bigger than it was 2016-17 when we won. You think back to those days, and we had Ben Fitchett, Max Ellis, Jason was obviously playing a bigger part, but even still before players left us like Josh Butler and Tom Bayard, and you go back slightly further with Will Peatfield, and obviously Hoops isn't around either. We've lost a lot of quality, not just from a numbers perspective, but in terms of the disciplines as well and what they give to teams. So a lot of those have left the island, a lot of them have gone to other clubs and we're playing against them. And the fact that we're still able to compete for us is really important. And yeah, I think certainly if we could win anything this summer, it'd be a huge bonus and it'd be really, really satisfying.
And of course, you play a big role in kind of keeping this Griffins machine moving forward. What's your kind of philosophy about building a successful club, I guess, on and off the pitch?
Certainly, as I mentioned, in terms of how we've performed this year, it's about having depth, and largely that comes from having essentially a youth player pathway. So we've got a fantastic junior programme, and we're very grateful to the guys that run that, and that's probably the thing that I'm least involved with. And Luke Bishard this year in particular has really stood up and grasped that and taken that forward as kind of head junior coach. So we've got a pathway there. We've got a pathway for those players to come into senior cricket via second 11 or C team through the Bs and then to the As. And it's a pathway that a lot of the players that are now playing first team cricket for us have been on themselves. So we can show those juniors that it works, that it's effective. We're reaping the rewards now. We've got a really young, vibrant first team squad and setup, and we can see there's plenty more to come as well. I
mean, just finally, what do you make of the season as a whole so far? Because we are in the midst of another slightly disrupted season, perhaps with or without interinsulars to look forward to. Do you feel like Guernsey cricket's in a good place?
I do. I think obviously what we've been able to speak about in a few minutes shows certainly both of our top tier domestic competitions are in good shape. I think it's a really hard job that Lats has got this year, in particular with fixtures, with all the uncertainty of playing towards interinsulars and then maybe them not happening in ICC competitions and so on. It's trying to put on enough quality cricket for everyone to stay keen is certainly going to be even more of a challenge in the second half of this summer. But certainly what we've played so far and what we've done has been fantastic. And yeah, we're just pleased to still be fighting and be involved and keep being spoken about and see where it takes us.
Well, thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you. No, and certainly from my perspective, and I think the wider sporting community, probably thank you as well for these opportunities and this coverage, which is superb. So thank you.
Oh, cool. Well, thanks very much for joining me. Much appreciated. I'll be back with another cricket catch up very soon. If you've enjoyed the video, do give it a share and a plug on social media, and don't forget to follow us at GSY Press Sport. Is the place to go on every platform.